hike in the park, and I thought this would be a good time to reply to the allotment challenge. Even though I don't have an allotment, I've been challenged. And I've been challenged by Rob in Finland, the old gardener guy. I think he picked on a couple of Canadians that don't have allotments because he doesn't have an allotment either. So the allotment challenge is moving on to other folk, I guess. I can answer the first two questions quite quickly. The first one is, how long have you had your allotment? Well, I don't have an allotment, never have had one. The closest thing that you could call an allotment to me is in the town of St. Stephen, and that's about 100 kilometers from here. They call them community gardens. Actually, if I'd had my camera with me yesterday, I could have taken some footage of it for you, but I didn't have a camera with me. It's across the street from my dentist's office in the town of St. Stephen. It's a series of raised beds, fairly good sized raised beds, probably 4 feet wide by, I don't know, 12, 15 feet long, something like that, and there's quite a number of them. And the lady at the dentist's office told me that she thinks they pay $5 a year for each raised bed that you rent, and I don't know if there's a limit on how many you can rent or whatever. There's quite a number of the beds there, I would say 25 or 30 or so, and I've been there in the summertime when they're planted and being used, and you can tell that some people that don't have any space at home are thankful to have them, but that's the closest that there is to an allotment garden here. So I don't have an allotment. And the second question was, how long did you have to wait to get your allotment? Well, didn't wait at all. The third question is, where did you learn about gardening? Well, I'm now 65 years old, and I can't remember when I wasn't gardening. I've always had a garden, even when I was a child. I'd have a small area of my father's garden or whatever. My first gardening experience, I remember taking my mother's dried beans, small white beans that she had to make baked beans with. Took them all outside and planted them. And I remember they came up. So that's my first gardening experience. I also remember an old gentleman that used to walk by our house when I was a child, and I was forever with a small bag of potato chips, and he convinced me that if I planted my potato chips, I would grow a potato chip tree. Yes, I tried that. I never did get my potato chip tree. So I don't know, I guess all of my life I've always been an avid reader on gardening. I've sort of changed over the years. It used to be mostly flowers and perennials and some vegetables and whatever, and now the perennial garden, flower garden, seems to get ignored more every year, and I'm more into growing my own food that I know is organic and hasn't got any chemicals and herbicides, pesticides, and all that good stuff soaked into it. So that's me with gardening. I have a large collection of gardening books, and I still buy more. It's an ever-learning process. I often said if I had all of the things that I have planted that didn't make it through the first winter, if I had the money from those, I'd be well off. But anyway, that's part of being a gardener. I love it, and that's how I learned my gardening. Question number 4 is, do you plant a winter garden? Well, folks, this is East Coast Canada. You don't plant a winter garden. Years ago, I had a small greenhouse, something 8 by 10 feet, something like that. And I did heat it one winter with propane, and didn't get much out of it, got a little stuff, had fun playing with it, but it cost a fortune to heat it for the winter. We get minus 22, minus 23 Celsius at some point every winter, and a lot of days that approach that much cold, but minus 23 or so is about as cold as it gets here on the coast. Under several feet of snow, as you saw if you watched my videos last year. It is possible, I guess, with double glazed hoop posts, 2 layers of film, and using another, like a cold frame inside, whatever, to grow certain kinds of greens, but I really don't do that. My winter gardening starts in, probably January, when I start my pepper plants under lights, and move on from there as we get closer and closer to spring, growing various things. under lights to get them ready for the garden. Start peppers early because they require a long growing season, which we do not have. So they will get started probably this year, early January. I started them, I think, a little too late last year. They weren't all that large when I got them out into the greenhouse, and getting any peppers at all was fairly late in the season. So that's my answer for question number 4. Well, I have arrived at the fox farm. If you hear a sudden scream and the screen goes blank, it's because I'm falling off of the picnic table that I'm standing on top of. Bifocal glasses and twirling around on a picnic table is not a good idea. In my lifetime, there's never been a fox farm here. There was evidently at some time, perhaps back in the 1800s or something. The area is still called the Fox Farm, and the view behind me is over into Maine, Lubac, Maine, the most eastern point in the USA. But that's not what we're here for, is it? The next question is, what was your biggest success this year or ever? Well, ever is a long time, especially for someone who's been gardening all their life. A number of things that I'm pleased that they grow for me, and they have to be pampered. You've probably seen my video on putting my fig trees to bed for the winter. I also grow artichokes. Neither one should normally grow in this climate at all. But my greatest success this year was tomatoes. Some years I struggle with tomatoes, and this year it was a magnificent crop of tomatoes, and it lasted for a long time. I was still harvesting tomatoes the end of September, I guess. I have to grow them in the hoop house. Yeah, I could grow them outside, but I'd never get a ripe one before September if I grew them out in the garden. This was a dry summer. Very little rain, hardly any at all in July and August. Not a hot summer. Warm days, but it wasn't terribly hot. But of course, the hoop house makes it quite hot in there for them. But I started to get some blight, and what I did was follow instructions that I've seen different English gardeners do, and Irish gardeners, I guess. I removed a lot of the foliage at that point, and it really caused all of the green fruit to start ripening, and I had a fantastic yield. So my best success this year was definitely tomatoes. I think I had 3, maybe 4 varieties, some of which I'll grow again, some of which I won't, but they were very successful. Well, moving right along from successes, the next question is, what's been your biggest gardening disaster? And that's very easy to answer. I'm not certain what year it was. I think I was probably still working, and I've been retired now for 10 years, so 12 years or so ago. We had a horrible summer. It rained all summer, July and August. It was just wet and miserable. And I didn't have my hoop house then. Everything was being gardened outside. I was using containers for potatoes and tomatoes, I think. Anyway, I lost them all to blight. It was so wet that summer that it was also the summer that the gardening club, I've never been a member of the gardening club, but they visited me twice over the years, and one of the ladies of the gardening club asked if they could come tour my garden. I said, "You've got to be kidding, it's a mud patch." But they came anyway, and it was interesting because I got to commiserate with some of the other gardeners in the area who were having the exact same luck. Their vegetable garden was a write-off, and flower gardens weren't looking much better. So that is my worst disaster ever. Now, if you can see the orange thing behind me, it doesn't mark the boundary, the border. It's a reference point to mark the international border, and they're erected across Canada and the US by the International Boundary Commission. That's the other half of it up there behind me. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the next question, does it? The next question is, do I have a tried and true variety of something that I grow every year? Not that I've been growing for a very long time, but right now I guess the closest I would come to that would be Cara potatoes. Brendan, Bacon Soda, sent me some seed potato for Cara. You can't get it here, at least I've never been able to find a source. So I've been saving my own seed now. I think this is the 3rd winter that I'm saving my own seed. I really like the variety, so that is my tried and true, I guess. I'm trying to keep it going, get good yield from it, and it's just a very nice potato. Very different than the varieties that you get around here. So I guess that is my one tried and true variety that I'm trying to keep going. Question number 8 is, are you planning to grow anything new next year? I'm always growing something new every year. I haven't really studied the seed catalogs yet to know how many new things I will be trying, but I'm sure there will be several. One in particular, I'm reading a book written by a market gardener, an organic market gardener in Quebec. I'll probably review the book for you at some point this winter when I'm talking about seeds, but he frequently talks about varieties of things that he grows. This year I grew for the first time the small purple top turnips, just because I have absolutely no luck growing rutabagas, or Swedes as they're called in some places, what we call a turnip here, the yellow fleshed rutabaga. I don't know why, I can't grow the things. I get these horrible little things at the end of the season, and I had good luck with these purple top turnips, the small ones, white fleshed. He grows a Japanese variety, and unfortunately I don't have the book with me, so I can't name the variety for you. Maybe I'll put it up here on the screen for you. But I found the seed. Johnny's Seeds in Maine sells them, so when I place my order with Johnny's, I'll order those, and that's one thing that I will be growing. That turnip is all white. It doesn't have the outside skin is white as well. I mean, it's white all the way through. So that's one thing that I will be growing new next year, and I'm sure there will be others. Well, we have arrived at what's called Cranberry Point, and that's the halfway point on my hike. It's sort of a circular route. I'll start back from this loop and end up back where I parked my car. The 9th question, I think it is how do I preserve my crops? I've done many things over the years. I used to do a lot of blanching and freezing, and I seem to have got away from that lately. I never know, I may be doing it again next year. I have a pressure canner now, and I tend to do a lot of canning. I canned all of my beans this year, and other than that I took my tomatoes and made them into tomato sauce and canned them, and a lot of the fruit that I grow, blueberries and plums, etc., and made those into jams and canned them. So I guess right now it's probably mostly canning. I do some dehydrating, but really not a lot. My dehydrator isn't anything to write home about, so I don't tend to do a lot of dehydrating. So that's basically it. I guess I'd like to eat most of it fresh when it's in season. My gardens really aren't that big. Sometimes I put out a horrendous long list of seeds of things that I'm going to grow, but it isn't like I'm growing a big area of each one. Some of those things only get a very few plants. That's all I have room for. So I really enjoy the fresh, I guess, more than anything else, but that's how my crop is preserved anyway. Well, behind me is one of the duck ponds with no water in it. It's a bay. I think this one is called the lower duck pond. We have two, lower and upper, and I always get them confused. And you probably can't see the man. I can't zoom with my GoPro here, but there's a man off there digging clams in the middle of the flats there. The tide is way out. Another 2 or 3 hours or so, and there'll probably be a bay full of water again. It changes remarkably fast. The final question in the series of 10 questions is, what is your favorite thing to cook with your veg from the plot? Well, it always seems to be whatever's available today. I really enjoy fresh vegetables, being a vegetarian, of course, but this time of year, what I'm looking forward to most, and I've got quite a wait yet, is fresh asparagus from the garden in the spring. That's usually about the first thing. Although I guess now with some of my perennial things that I started, Good King Henry is ready before the asparagus is. But I tend to eat the asparagus just as much raw, picking it in the garden, as bringing it in, steaming it, and cooking it. And that's my favorite way of cooking most fresh vegetables from the garden. I either steam them or boil them in a little bit of water, serve them with lots of butter and salt and pepper, and nothing could be any better. Well, that concludes the 10 questions. So now to pass the challenge on, in what's become, instead of being an allotment challenge, it's a Canadian Gardener's Challenge, I guess. Although one of my Canadian gardeners that I'm about to nominate here isn't in Canada any longer. But first I will nominate Robert Panchaud. If you see his channel, watch his channel. If you need a translation, Panchaud is hot bread. And he's a gardener in northern New Brunswick, the same province that I live in. Always has a nice garden, and he has a nice little greenhouse that he gets a lot of use out of, extending his crops. So it's now up to you, Robert, to march around and do something like this with your camera. And the second nomination is in Thailand. It's Paul, Life in Thailand. Paul is a Canadian from Newfoundland and Labrador. He's married to a Thai lady and lives in Thailand. And they have a small farm right around his property in the enclosure where his house is. He has a wonderful garden, and a lot of animals is what always interests me. He has turkeys and chickens and guinea fowl and goats, you name it, and that's what I really enjoy seeing. They've just finished the rice harvest. That was one of his latest videos, was showing the rice harvest being thrashed. So check out Paul's channel, Life in Thailand. And Paul, it's up to you now to answer these 10 questions. The 10 questions are down below this video. And I'll thank everybody for watching.